This episode of Author Stories is brought to you by Athon Books. Check out the very best in science fiction and fantasy at athonbooks.com.
You're listening to the Author Stories podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
J.T. Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is...
Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have Marcia Butler back on the show with me today. She was on, we were just chatting, and I think it's been almost 2 years ago now. She had a new book at the time called Pickles Progress. And, I remember us talking at the time about what a pleasant surprise that book was. It was one of the most innovative stories that I'd seen in quite a while. And if you've not read that, I encourage you to, while you're listening to this, go to Amazon or wherever and order that book as well. But she has a brand new book. It's called Oslo, Maine, that's only been out for a couple of days now when you're hearing this. And if you enjoyed Pickles Progress, this is a different kind of book, but equally as engaging and intriguing. And I know you guys are going to love it. Welcome back to the show, Marcia.
Thanks, Hank. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you back. So, Marcia, what's been going on over this last year or so? It's been kind of a crazy time, and book launches are a little different now. Book tours are a little different. How are you coping with the changes that are now 2021?
Right. It has been just an unprecedented year, and everybody feels that, of course, immensely. The strange thing that happened to me is that after 46 years of living in New York City, last February, 1 week before the COVID hit New York City, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was very, very lucky that I moved when I did, because if I had moved 2 weeks after, my stuff probably would never have gotten here. My apartment wouldn't have sold in New York, all sorts of things. And threads came together that made me one of the luckiest people, I felt, looking at what other challenges people have had. So I'm here in Santa Fe. It's paradise, and the publishing, industry is in chaos, really. Except everybody is stepping up. Bookstores are stepping up with Zoom events. Publishers are pivoting quickly with pub dates. And the great thing about books is that everybody reads and everybody wants books right now. So I think there's actually a lot of grace in what's going on for authors right now in publishing. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. When we talked last time, Marcia, we also talked about this other project that you had that was just about to launch, the Creative Imperative film, and that was launching at a limited run there locally in New York where you were. But let's catch up on that. What happened with the film, and where is it going for the future?
Well, the film premiere was in June it was June 2019. It is a documentary film, for those who are listening and don't know, called The Creative Imperative. I have been involved in a number of different creative careers in my life, and I think deeply about inspiration, process, and the meaning of art forms in the world, why we need them. So I decided to interview musicians, artists, writers, actors, and dancers. I think I had about 20 people of all the disciplines, and I asked them the same three questions. And this documentary is a compilation of an editing of their answers. And what I tried to get to is just an overall view of what are the inspirations for these people? What does it feel like in the body center when they are in the act of making their art form? And why does the world need their art form? Why do we need the arts? And the answers are quite profound. We go off on a lot of different tangents, and it premiered in June of 2019. And I put it out a little bit, but it didn't get much, and no nibblings from Netflix, let's put it that way. But it's up on my YouTube channel. And the full interviews are up on the YouTube channel, and maybe 100 or 150 short videos of people that I interview just ad hoc. I'm always looking for people who want to answer the questions. And, those videos can be anywhere from 3 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on how long they go on. And so it's a little repository for what I believe is a way to distill the creative person's process, essentially. So I feel it's important. It's something I want to do, and I'll continue to do it. So all you creative people, come at me.
I didn't realize that you had published it on your YouTube channel, but I will definitely link that channel up in the show notes of this episode because I, for one, want to dig all into that, and I know so many other folks will want to as well. How fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of authors on, and of course many musicians, because I used to be a musician, and all the art forms. So it's been fun. It's been really fun.
Well, speaking of your past as a musician, you are no stranger to creativity, the creative process, performing, putting your art out there for the world. But when you published Pickle's Progress as your first novel, how was that different? What was it like getting that, this work that you work on by yourself for so long, out to the world and getting feedback from people? What was that experience like, and how maybe did it differ from the other creative endeavors that you've been involved with?
Right. Well, it's being a musician is sort of the short haul. In other words, you're always performing, every week, learning new music, performing new music. And the performance is very intense. It is very in the moment. You're hyper attuned, and then it's over, right? And you're on to the next. With a novel, there is, it takes a couple of years to write it, of course. Sometimes people take as long as 8 years. I mean, I think I wrote Pickle in about 3 years. And so it feels like, because so much time was put into it, that somehow the stakes are higher. It comes out on this one day, and then it's out, and then what happens, who knows? And people do have reactions. And the other thing is that your words are there forevermore, right? So in a performance, people are in the hall are experiencing. If it's on a recording, of course, it can be listened to again. And I did do many recordings when I was an oboist. But the good news is the book is there forever, and people can read it and comment on it again and again and again. And that's a different experience. Concerts are ephemeral. Music is ephemeral. They come backstage and say, "Oh, Marcia, you sounded so great," and then the next day you're on to the next. So it's kind of short haul, long haul. But the good thing about writing that I really love is that I am in total control of what I'm doing, to the best of my ability in craft and, my imagination. As a musician, you do have agency over your instrument and how you're going to render various, melodies and so forth if you're playing with people. Of course, if you're in an orchestra, you have to pay attention to the conductor because it's his interpretation of the great masterwork. However, in writing, you are in charge of everything, which is at once very freeing and very daunting. And so it is a different level of commitment. Maybe commitment is not the right word, but you're in there. It is all you. There is no one else, and it's there. So I've enjoyed that freedom of the long haul of writing a novel, of, just pressing through, failing every week, every day, changing, editing. It's just kind of a glorious process. You can't do that as a musician. You have to be on during the concert, and boom, it's there. It's got to be great. So that's
I have a friend who's a stand-up comic, and we were talking one day about the difference in writing and performing comedy for an audience, and we likened it to sort of when you're performing stand-up comedy, it's almost like you're editing on the fly because you can see the audience's reactions. You can tell whether a line works, whether it doesn't. You can then choose to bail on a story and try to recover that crowd, or you can go all in and just really, make them mad, or that you're kind of you're live editing on the fly with audience reaction. But novel writing is definitely not that. You put all of yourself into the work before you ever meet the very small audience of maybe your editor and beta readers or whatever, and then ultimately to a larger audience. But I would kind of think that being a musician is a little bit of that. You've got the tension of live reactions versus putting all of the work in ahead of time that a writer does. Do you see that one influences the other, or that you might have learned some things from one pursuit that informs the other?
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's a great question. One of the main things that I'm so grateful for being a musician for all those years, I mean, it's like 28 years in New York City, is discipline, right? So you have to know your music. Not only do you keep up on your instrument, to a very, very, very high level, but you have new music coming at you every week, and you may have played it before, but you have to, in other words, the level that you have to play at all the time, even in rehearsals, highly competitive. So you're on your game, right? And so I feel like I've translated this into writing, which is that I rely on myself for the most part to be my worst critic, and I don't get sad about it, right? In other words, if something's not working out, I just dig in deeper into the tunnel. No, it's not working out. Let's not get sentimental about this. Let's, ditch this aspect of the book, or, the storyline, or this paragraph, or whatever it is, and press through, because the thing that I feel confident about is that I'll get there. I'll find a way. I have a certain amount of intelligence about this. And I don't think I'm the smartest bulb, the brightest bulb in the room, but I do feel like I can get there, because I've experienced that as a musician, failing in the practice room, and then finally getting a piece and rendering it the way the composer wants, and getting on stage and being a success at that. So you do that all the time. So I feel that I can translate that into writing. Of course, I do use beta readers, and I do have an editor, of course, when the book comes to the publishing house. And those are necessary voices from outside, where I can't quite see it clearly within myself. I'm too deep into it. And I certainly, use those people gratefully. However, I use them at the very end. I never give early drafts to people. I keep my words very, very close, because I like to force myself to get to the absolute wall with what I think I can do, put it aside, send it to a beta reader, and say, what do you think? So yeah, like discipline, and just I think a confidence in knowing that I feel I can find the answer, and I want to find it on my own. I don't want to listen to somebody's rendering of a Mozart concerto so that I will be informed about how I'm going to play it. I want to find that my own unique take on this character and what the character will do, and find the best way to represent it. So yeah, that's the intersections are great between music and writing, in my mind, in my experience.
Absolutely.
Are you looking for software that helps you bring your novel to life? Novelize is a web-based writing app which allows you to access your work on any device with a browser and an internet connection, right from your desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Just get the novel written. Say goodbye to sticky notes. With our notebook on the side, you can keep track of all the important information you need to write your novel. We keep distractions to a minimum, help you track your progress, and encourage you to write more novels. You can even use the same notebook for your novels in a series. Outline, write, or organize your novel by switching between modes. You can write your outline notes while you're writing, and you can move scenes and chapters around anytime in the organize mode. Choose between the dark and light theme to help prevent eye strain so that you can stay immersed in your book. Novelize, the app for writers by writers.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting, and we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web.
So after Pickle's Progress, which was a kind of a quintessential New York story, if you want to look at it that way, you moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then publish a book called Oslo, Maine. Santa Fe and rural Maine are probably as far apart in the continental U.S. as you can get. What was the kernel of the idea that brought Oslo, Maine to life for you?
Right. Well, it does relate to my music career as well. I used to play in Central Maine every summer for a week, a chamber music festival there. I went back for many years, and it was not so rural, but it was Central Maine. It was like an hour up and an hour left of Portland. And during that time, I fell in love with the state. I became obsessed with moose. And, Mainers told me lots of stories about moose and their experiences. And the woman who ran the festival told me of this bizarre situation where she actually crashed into a moose late at night. The moose, thank God, died immediately. But what happened to her and the experience of that night and the next day, the story always stayed with me. Now, that story I changed greatly in the novel, but it became I always remembered it, and I wasn't even writing at the time. This is back in the, I guess the late 90s or early 2000s when I was still performing, and I always remembered it. I became really interested in moose. I've probably YouTubed every video of moose out there. And sort of an obsession. And it ultimately, after Pickle, I knew I wanted to write this story about Central Maine. I knew quite a bit about the area. I felt like I had to take on the people. And some of the people that I knew up there are archetypes of the characters in my novel. So I wrote this novel about a fictitious town in Maine called Oslo. And a moose has a point of view in my novel, as do other humans. And it's I don't know if you want me to tell a little bit about the book or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Right. So it tracks 3 families who are affected by a young 12-year-old boy named Pierre Roy, who has had an accident and he has lost his memory, right, in a strange way. And all the people around him are failing him about this. He happens to be learning the violin. He happens to be quite talented. He's a bit of a prodigy. And he finds out that he becomes a little existentialist. He realizes that the past is not really important and everyone's always fussing about the future. And it doesn't really matter because when he's playing the violin and he knows he doesn't have any memory and it's just making his life a misery, that when he's playing the violin, when he is playing music, it is only in the now. So the moose and the boy are alter egos in the novel, in that the moose is always waking up every day and just taking care of her needs, right? So in between all of this, we have Pierre's father who's behaving badly. We have his mother who is incredibly depressed and has a dependency on pills due to the fact that her son is suffering. So Pierre's violin teacher, Sandra, is a neighbor down the street, and she's from away, and so the parents don't get along, and it's a confluence of about 7 people who are ordinary and yet extraordinary. And people become extraordinary when bad things happen to, the people that we love, such as Pierre Roy, who is suffering so with his memory loss. And all through the novel, the moose is the linchpin. Everything, the moose has a point of view. The moose sees things that the characters don't, but the reader knows. So it's kind of a threaded novel about these people and how they attempt to help Pierre and fail and fail and fail. And anyway, it has a happy ending. So the boy is fine. Let's put it that way.
Well, Oslo, Maine is a beautiful backdrop for a story. The difference in the stage that you set between Oslo, Maine and Pickle is stark. What did you do to separate the stories in your mind? Obviously, the setting is different in that the scenery is different. But what is it about the way the characters act that is different in this book and Pickle, for instance? Because both are New York and Maine are both northeastern states, but that maybe worlds apart. In the way that the character of the people and the character of the town. How did that come out in the writing?
Right. Well, Pickle was my first novel, and I believe I sort of had this idea with the second novel. It was very specifically cited, right, in Maine. I had this inciting incident that I was going to write to and away from, and I believe that this isn't something that I consciously thought about, but of course, as I'm talking about Oslo now a lot, things come to mind later that were unconscious, is I wanted to explore various types of people, right? So, for instance, what drives a man like Claude Roy, who is Pierre's father, who is a lot of bluster, right? And does some pretty bad things in the novel. I mean, he just really can't get ahead of himself. It's, he can't seem to control himself in terms of his anger and his frustration about not, being able to help his son, because his son is not exactly the son that he thought he was going to have. And yet his son is suffering because of this memory loss. Yet he wants to be a loving family man, and he loves his wife dearly. So I wanted to pack in a lot of disparate qualities into one person and go deeply into interiority of these characters, right? So I did this with Claude Roy. Of course, Pierre is a boy who understands the irony of all the adults around him and is kind of, rolling his eyes constantly as they try to help him. And then he realizes that, they're all a bunch of phonies and, the usual 12-year-old, Holden Caulfield zeitgeist stuff. But I think I was interested in exploring character types and how they can inhabit good and bad at the same time. Because the thing that I always remember with my characters is, for the most part, 99% of the time, these people were loved. And when a person is loved in their life right early on and has gotten that, they are not all bad, right? And so this is how I explored it. It was just more dedicated to that, I would say. These are character studies essentially, right, around a gnarly plot. So I think that's kind of where I located myself when I was writing Oslo, was in the character study.
So you really get to wrestle with some pretty deep existential questions. As you talked about earlier, being in the now and the present is, we can't change the past, but we can definitely be present now, and we can change how we respond and react to the people around us going forward. But you get to wrestle with these really kind of heady topics in a fun way with a cast of characters that, and I'm smiling as I'm talking about them, because it just it's such a fun way to do it. Writing fiction is one of those times where you really get to do things in such a different way and approach topics in new and unique ways. What was it like to get to tackle these different characters, get inside their heads and in different stages of maturity and adolescence, and even the moose's perspective? That had to be a lot of fun as a writer to get to do.
Yeah, it really was, Hank. In terms of the human characters, I enjoyed very much during the process of writing of, like stretching them like a rubber band. Like, how far can this person go? Or really, what is motivating this person? And then going into perhaps a backstory that explains, for instance, Sandra Kimbrough, who is Pierre's teacher, she was a prodigy herself, and she gives up her sort of shoe-in position in an orchestra because she doesn't want it, because she has a different idea of ambition that everyone has applied to her when she was a young woman. Everyone, she's going to, do beautifully. She might be a soloist. She's certainly going to be in an orchestra. And she really didn't want that for herself. And so she took control and maneuvered things so that she ended up in Oslo, teaching violin and playing in the local orchestra in Portland, Maine. And that was a better experience for her. But I enjoyed stretching out what they would do, what they would think, and then pulling them back, and then hopefully rounding the character out so that there's nothing so outlandish that it doesn't make sense. And the irony of all of this is that Pierre is the wisest of all, because he really understands fully that the past is nice enough to think about, but it is not in any way a predictor of what's going to happen in the future, and that he has no control over the future. So that he uses this device of his violin and the sound of the violin when things are very confused in his world. He'll sit there and stand there in his room and play the violin, and it all falls away. And that's very much the way I used the oboe when I was growing up as well. And that's I realized that that's where that comes from, is I grew up in a confusing family. I knew I had the oboe. It was rock solid. It never let me down. I could go and play, and that was real to me. So I had a lot of fun pulling these characters apart. There's a bunch of them. That one character has an obsession with Family Feud and has memorized all the reruns with Richard Dawson. There's a lot of humor in this novel because people are people. You open up a person's front door and like go into their back closet and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And that's kind of the way the characters in Oslo are. I had a great time working them out. And so it's fun, but also there's a lot of deep issues in the book.
Absolutely. So from Pickle in New York City to Oslo, Maine, what are you turning your sights toward now, Marcia? What do you tackle next?
Well, I'm into my next novel, right? And I started it, I guess, a year ago when I formally finished Oslo, because the publishing cycle is long. I have a novel which is I'm not quite certain what it's going to be, but it involves a young woman whose parents are of Irish extraction, but she lives so far in New York City, and she's working on Wall Street for a finance guy who's from Belarus, and one of their clients is a washed up British rock and roller, and there's also a plumber involved. That's all I can say at this point. The plumber is big, right? I have a thing for plumbers also, so that's all I can say. Because water's crazy, and plumbers know a lot about water, and
that's right.
So it's sort of I have like 60 pages. I don't know where it's going to go, but
if you don't think plumbers are important, let them all leave the earth tomorrow, and you'll find out pretty quickly.
Plumbers and roofers. Roofers are big too, we're finding out. Yeah, plumbers are they're brilliant. Well, first of all, the toilet is brilliant. Let's put it that way. I mean, that thing was an invention like the printing press, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
So I revere the plumber.
I can't agree with you more. Marcia, we're going to put links to Oslo, Maine in the show notes of this episode to make it easy for folks to find, because it's been out for a couple of days now when people are hearing this, and they can grab it in Kindle edition or, actual paper or, audiobook. I think there is an audiobook.
Yes, there is. Yep.
Excellent. I know that audiobooks are huge right now, so I know some folks will grab that from Audible as well. There's links to it in the show notes. Marcia, if people are just discovering you and want to dig into all the great stuff that you do, where can they find you online?
Oh, that's nice. Well, my website is marciabutlerauthor.com, and you spell my name Marcia. And as an alternative, just Google Marcia Butler, and lots of stuff comes up.
Excellent. We'll put links there to help folks find you. Marcia, always fun catching up. I wish you much success with Oslo, Maine, and we're waiting patiently to see where this plumber takes us in the next one.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hank. What a delight.
Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started. Dream Author by Sophie Hannah is an immersive 14-month coaching program for writers at any and every level of experience, and also for those of you who want to write and are just waiting for the right encouragement and guidance to get you started. Your writing dreams should make you happy. For so many of us, our dreams are not a source of happiness. Instead, they cause us stress, guilt, frustration, and even shame. Here's the great news. All of these feelings are natural, and all writers experience them. The problem, though, is that when your writing dreams bring you more anxiety than joy, it affects your resolve and your productivity, and you end up not taking the action you need to take in order to propel your dreams in the right direction so that they can stand a strong chance of coming true. That's why Sophie created the Dream Author Coaching Program, to teach anyone who is passionate about writing how to change the way they build, think about, and pursue their writing dreams in order to become their own most powerful ally and advocate for the rest of their writing life. And more great news. Once you've learned that skill, it lasts forever. Visit dreamauthorcoaching.com to get started today.